So today we've got Frayle, who's a totally killer band, and then later we're going to do an interview with Reese. So why don't you guys check out this video for Frayle for the new song, The Things That Make Us Bleed. You're going to love these guys. Killer video, huh? Yeah, totally scary. I love it. Well, we're gonna move on because me and my buddy Ryan Carey did an interview with Frayle. So check this out. It's pretty funny. Hey everybody, my name is Frank Kavanaugh. Welcome to Full Metal MAGA.
And I'm Ryan Carey.
Today we got a great interview with a band called Frayle, and I gotta have some full disclosure here. I actually was in Frayle last year. I love these guys. I think that what they're doing is the model for what music should be and could be doing. They're amazing, amazing band, and I wish them the best of success. And I want to turn it over to Ryan now, who's going to ask a couple questions. So Ryan, go ahead.
Cool. Everybody feeling? You guys feeling good today? You guys look awesome. I'm sorry, I got to say it again. You guys look fantastic. So one of the big questions, as I was talking to Frank yesterday, kind of as we were going over what kind of questions, I really wanted to get your guys' opinion on how you feel rock's place is now in the musical climate that we're in, as opposed to 20, 30 years ago, like what rock was, back in the 90s, as opposed to what it is today, and the kind of like where it fits, and whether it's getting like bigger or,
Well, so being around playing rock back in the 90s and the early 2000s, I think that it's, pre-internet, it was harder to find bands that like were sort of like, I don't know, it was just harder to find new music back then. Like there was MTV and there was radio, but there wasn't really a venue for smaller bands that kind of come out and do it on their own unless they got the approval of an A&R guy or, somebody else that was sort of like a gatekeeper to let your music, get out there. So I think that the quality, the amount of bands, I think there's more bands now. I think that the quality has stayed the same, although there's just more bands you got to sift through to find, what you're into. I think that technology has allowed bands to record themselves and produce themselves and put their own music out now, which would have been pretty much impossible back in the day. So I think that I want to say it's the stage is better now, but there is a lot more bands because that technology allows you to get your music out there. There's more bands that you have to sift through. So you, as a fan or a consumer of music, you have to do a little bit more homework now, I guess. But I think the reward is greater if you do your homework, I guess.
So do you notice that as you guys go on tour, do you see more and more young people starting to come out to concerts and stuff like that, or?
I think that our crowd, it seems to be for the most part like a little bit older. What do you say? There are younger kids out there, which I get a kick out of when someone half my age comes to one of our shows and like, you guys are awesome, and I'm like, I was born like I could be your dad.
Yeah.
But it's again like the younger kids. I don't know, like there's just so much out there. So I feel like our scene is definitely like an older crowd. But as we grow, like when we went to Europe, I would say overall the crowd was like older. And this is like a bigger festival, and I think for the most part, older crowd. Would you say?
I don't know, older. I think probably like 30s.
To me, that's older. Like 18 is like young.
Like he's 12.
Yeah.
Got a bunch of 6-year-old getting in a mosh pit and stuff.
Yeah. We have an 8-year-old that watches us rehearse every night. My daughter, she's awesome.
Yeah, cool. All right, and then my next question is: if you guys could go on tour with any band, doesn't matter from what genre, what decade, whatever it was, who would it be and why?
I think Chelsea Wolfe is always up there. For me, she's like a huge inspiration for me, just vocally and musically and sonically, like just everything that she does seems on point to me, and I love to see how she's progressed through the years. And I guess the next album that she's going to be doing is an acoustic album, so I'm kind of looking forward to that, because she's kind of gone way up there to like super heavy, and now she's just going to drop way down. I think that's really interesting. So I think she's kind of fearless, and I really appreciate that. And I think she'd be awesome to go on tour with.
I agree with Chelsea Wolfe, and I think for me I'd love to go on tour with Perfect Circle. I just feel like that tour, you'd stay in really nice hotels. Your backstage would be really nice. Catering would be awesome. And it's just run really pro. So for purely selfish reasons, I think the Perfect Circle would be awesome to tour with.
All right, you guys, you have a very interesting backstory about how you met and how Frayle came together. And I want you guys to tell me about that. And Gwen, I want to ask you about what you feel. This is kind of like, you don't have to really get into this, but how you feel about the political nuttiness here in America, being a Canadian. But tell me about how you guys started.
Well, we met in 2016, 2015, 2016. I don't know. I actually hired him. We're both clothing designers, and Sean had an apparel development company, and I hired him to make patterns. And he came into my store, and I think we both kind of knew what was up, but oh, and then Kat. It's like wrangling a 5-year-old. What I deal with.
That's awesome.
So yeah, he came into my store and
she couldn't resist. So
I was smitten. But we were both in relationships, and it didn't go anywhere. We just kind of talked, and I think I hired him a couple more times to do more patterns. And then one day I get a text going, "Hey, I'm getting divorced." And I'm like, "Oh." And I just happened to break up with my boyfriend too. So it seemed kind of like everything aligned to
timing.
This one.
Yeah.
Timing's everything. Yeah.
And then we started working together on the apparel development company, which we still do. That's what our day job is. We do apparel development for brands all over the world. And then moved in together, and then I would hear her singing in the bathtub at nighttime, usually like Portishead songs or whatever. So I did the cover of the Portishead song that's on that debut EP of ours, The White Witch. And I did the music, and I was like, "Hey, Gwen, come in here and sing on this." And she was like, "No way." And I was like, "Yeah, you're great at singing. Get in here." And she's like, "Nope." Yeah. So then I finally got her in here, but then I had to go, we're on the 3rd floor of our studio, and I had to go downstairs, and she shut all the doors so she could sing by herself. And then like 4 days later, I was finally allowed back up. And then that's how we started working together. So that cover song, that Portishead song, was probably one of the first things we did. And then we just wrote some more songs and gave ourselves a deadline of like April 1st, which was I think 2 months from the day that we actually first started messing around with stuff. And we just gave ourselves that personal deadline to put it on Bandcamp with no expectations at all. Like we just were doing that for ourselves. And then everything kind of like took off from there. And then, so we've only really been a band for, a year. April 1st is kind of our birthday. I guess that's when the EP
I'm glad that you mentioned that you guys gave yourselves a personal deadline, because I think that's a lot of things that bands and people don't do, is give themselves a personal deadline. You have to have a motivation to get up off the couch and actually make the music, or you'll never make it. You guys also doing that. What amazed me about you guys is when I saw you come out, I was like, the timing was perfect. You have black cats. You have a third story studio that you record everything in, and the amount of promotion and the work that you guys put in, I think should be an example to every band and musician, because you really, how it is today, I feel, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that you have to be able as an artist to be diversified with multiple income streams. Because if you're not, if you sit there like, I'm just going to wait for my big break, you'll never do what you're here to do. You have to, I don't want to say be humble, but you have to be realistic about the fact that, we're in modern times where the market is saturated and a lot of our intellectual property gets taken for free. So, I don't know if I'm wrong there, but what do you think?
I think that's good advice in any area of life, not just as an artist. I think that, if you sit back and wait for things to happen to you, then you're not taking control of your life. And it's you're just not going to get anywhere. What you put in is what you get out. Right. So you have to take control of that, and you have to put as much out there as you possibly can and be prolific and do good work, and put out quality product. And, you know, we used to have a saying at the job I used to work at, it's like trash in, trash out, right? So if you're just half-assing everything, you're going to get a half-assed response. So you really need to kind of, you know, put your best foot forward. And, you know, luckily, you know, Sean is really good at taking photographs. Sean is really good at recording. Sean is really good at writing, you know, music. I think I do okay at like styling photos and kind of determining like what the ideas are and stuff like that. So I think the two of us, I've always said the two of us creatively are really good together because we just seem to feed off of each other, and we don't smash ideas. We kind of build off of each other. So I think that's
that's so important. Yeah, it's so important. And you can tell that creatively from the music to the t-shirts you guys design to the album cover to the videos you make yourselves, that there's a symbiotic or symbiosis, whatever that word is. It's working. Keep it up.
Yeah, because I will say, I mean, in a time where album covers have kind of gone by the wayside, I will say the album cover that you guys have coming up is pretty gross. Like, it's awesome. Like, I thought it was just really neat to see that, and I was just like, you know, I wish that album covers, especially for rock bands, but album covers in general, really had the same kind of weight that they had, you know, 70s, 80s, and 90s and stuff. So it's really cool to actually see some art, like real art, come back into the album covers.
Thank you. You know, we when we did that, the first record cover for the EP, and then moving forward doing the same, you know, our recipe, we just thought about, you know, Bandcamp objectively, and what you, as a consumer of music and as a fan looking for new music, you go on there, and the first thing you're doing is you're comparing visually all the other bands that came up in your search, whether you search for hard rock or stoner rock or doom or whatever, alternative, whatever. You're competing for that little 1 inch by 1 inch square, the attention that you can get next to other you know, artists. So we knew that going into it, and I think that you know, Gwen mentioned Chelsea Wolfe, his spun cover of the record that her most recent release, we think is visually a really strong record. So that was like, or, you know, cover. So that was inspiration for us. Like, okay, we have to figure out some kind of identity that's ours. And we did photo shoots that we look back on now that, you know, we didn't really release, that we're like, it was like our baby steps of trying to figure out, like, what do you do with lights in your bedroom, and how can you set it up and make it look pro, and what do we have to say? So, you know, the cover for the EP, we went to Home Depot, and Gwen was like, I want a chain mask. So we went to Home Depot and spent like $7 on some chain and cut it up and like made this mask, and, you know, she put it on.
Awesome.
And, you know, that was it. And so that was our first kind of like win personally. So we liked that one. We put that one out there. Feedback was strong, and that cover actually did a lot for us. I mean, within like a few hours, like one of the YouTube influencers in our genre reached out and asked if he could put it up. And then within a couple days, we had a label in Europe. And then 2 weeks later, we had a US label. And a lot of it had to do with that cover, because that's the first point of contact that fans have with your music now. So I think that covers are really important, and you have to understand that, like, the images you put out there, that you develop yourselves, are just as important as your guitar tone, or just as important as your lyrics, you know.
Right.
Because of the way that music is consumed now, there's no budget of a major label putting it out there, and that's you're in. It's like your competition is every band in the world. So how do you stand out? Starting visually, you know what I mean? And then you have to back it up with a good product. And if you open the door visually, you have a good product for the listener to, you know, experience, then you gained maybe a fan. You know what I mean? So it's a tough. It's
like the band almost has to be the art department, the promotion department, the advertising department of the old record label, because that's just not there anymore.
Absolutely. And you have all the tools, and that's what's great about technology now is, you know, you can get Logic and, you know, or Pro Tools or whatever, and then there's Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And so the tools are all there. You know, you just have to know how to use them, and you have to really, really understand what you want to say. And then how do you say that visually and through your music? You know, because music is all conversation, I think, with somebody. Like you're speaking to someone, right? So if you're going and no one can understand what you're saying, then what's the point? You know, I mean, you have to learn how to talk and then learn how to walk and then put it all out there, I guess, you know?
I agree 100%, which is a great segue to we're all on YouTube. What do you feel about the issue with free speech now? How certain people are getting banned? I don't really want to delve into why, but just the fact that people's speech is getting shut down. Like to me, that's very frightening. I want to see what you guys feel as artists and as Americans about what's happening right now with that.
I think it's kind of scary because if you take a look at how we're going, I think people think that we're becoming a more progressive society. But if you take a look at it, anybody that does not share the same politically correct view gets shut down immediately and gets applauded for doing so, right? I think that, I forget who it was that said, but you know, while I might not agree with what you say, I will defend to the death your right to say it, right? So I am a huge believer in that, and I think that it's okay to have an unpopular opinion. Why? Since when did it? I think just with like all the internet trolling and shit like that, where people just kind of are. It's easier to put people down when you're not looking them eye to eye, you know. And I think that's kind of crappy that we've kind of come to this point where we feel like, you know, it kind of on the surface it looks like we're progressing and we're becoming more, I don't know, open-minded or whatever, but when you dissect it a little bit, it's actually becoming more closed-minded and people are getting beaten down for having an unpopular opinion.
Right.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. If it's taking away the ability to make mistakes. And that's how, when you're an artist, you have to be able to make mistakes and create. And if you can't, if I can't say an idea that comes into my head and someone go, hey, that's wrong, and here's why it's wrong, and me go, hey, I agree with your idea because your idea is right, my idea is wrong, then I can never grow as a person. And so when someone says something that people don't disagree with and they get shut down and hated, and if you're wearing a hat, you get it knocked off and you get physically assaulted, that's where we're breaking down. That's where I don't have the ability to make a mistake anymore. And if I don't have the ability to make a mistake, own my mistake, I can't get better. So it's, I agree with what you're saying. It's scary. And I applaud you guys for coming on my show. I mean, not only are we friends, I love you guys. I love you as artists, but also coming on just because it is, you know, an environment where we need to stand up for each other's free speech. And I thank you. And I don't want to get all serious about that because I want everyone to go check out Frayle on Bandcamp. You can check them out on our site. Their music is awesome. I want to leave you guys with a couple more questions though. What's your guys' favorite color? I think I already know.
Black.
Of course.
So recently, it's always been black pretty much, but recently, I don't know if you can see that green ant back there, but it's the ugliest, like the same color green that like road signs on the highway are, which is just awful.
Peter Steele, dude.
That color touches my soul now.
Green means go.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. Of course, black. What's your favorite ice cream?
Well, there's this ice cream from Turkey Hill. It's like you've opened Pandora's box. I don't think you understand. But there's this ice cream from Turkey Hill called chocolate. It's chocolate marshmallow, but it's like the creamiest ice cream I have ever had in my life. So that's fun.
Yeah, so Gwen's a very complex person. She's way smarter than I am. She's into like very complex things, except for ice cream. That Turkey Hill ice cream she's talking about is like it's delicious, but it is not very complex. I'm more of like a s'mores ice cream that has like the marshmallows are actually burnt in a fire and the chocolate from some crazy cow in Switzerland. It all
Gourmet ice cream.
Wonderfully to make a s'mores very complex ice cream.
We went out for ice cream this one time, and I get a s'mores ice cream, and he tasted it.
I basically took it from her.
Yeah, and he's like, it's so complex. I'm like, if you say complex one more time, I said, if this was like a first date, I'd be like, yeah, I'm out of here.
Which that happens every day, by the way. Like I just things that happen first date, she'd be out of here. 'Cause I'm not
that's awesome.
You know what's funny is that you mentioned Turkey Hill. They put out ice cream like I don't know if it was a year or 2 years ago. It was like banana ice cream with a peanut butter swirl in it. I was like, look out, diabetes, here I come.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Worth it.
All right, and what's your guys' favorite holiday? I think I know that one too.
Actually, I really like Christmas.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna let you down, Frank, on Halloween. I know you want that, but I'm gonna say Christmas too because it's like pajamas and like mom. It's awesome.
Man, you got everyone's saying Christmas. I might get converted, but I'm gonna stay with Halloween.
No, Frank,
Absolutely.
you can't like Halloween.
All right, I loathe Halloween. I'm gonna stay loathing Halloween and Full Metal MAGA. All right, you guys, I love you. Thanks so much for doing this. And oh wait, let me ask you, what are you guys up to after this? What are you playing? Are you touring? Are you doing videos? What are you doing?
So we're shooting a video today for our upcoming 7-inch, which is on Aqualam Records in the U.S. and then on Lay Bear Recordings in Europe. That 7-inch releases digitally, I think,
19th.
April 19th, and then sometime a few weeks after, physical will actually start shipping because we're doing this alchemy box, which is like a limited edition. It has all this comes with all this stuff. Like there's crystals in it, tarot cards,
Cool.
so much. Everything that you need to cast positive or negative spells on people come in this 7-inch kit, so you're ready to go.
Cool. Right on. Awesome.
Yeah, so that's coming out. Full-length EP will be out sometime this summer. We're in. I think if this comes out on the 9th or the 12th, April 12th, we'll be in Toronto. April 13th, Montreal. And then we're playing a lot of festivals around the U.S. this summer. There's Doomed and Stoned Chicago. There's Descendants of Crom in Pittsburgh. There's Doomed and Stoned Ohio. There are all these Doom festivals in the U.S. which are starting to spring up, which is great because they're kind of following the European model, which is amazing in Europe. And I think it's starting to catch on in the U.S. too. And this really strong sense of community, I think, is springing up, and it's helping bands grow, faster. And we're fortunate enough that these festivals want us to come play. And so we're really excited about that. This is going to be a good summer for us, I think.
Cool. Awesome. Well, best of luck to you guys. Ryan, you want to say anything before we go?
No, I just want to say thanks so much for taking the time hanging out with us, guys, and talking with us real quick. And I know you guys have a busy schedule, but wish you guys the best of luck on your upcoming shows, and I can't wait to see the video.
Thanks.
Hey, thank you so much.
And I want to say, too, that I think that you guys are really onto something with this idea of, trying to bring people together, and how free speech is sort of, on the surface, everybody says, yeah, it's amazing, but we're really not practicing what we preach when it comes to that. So I think that you guys are onto something with trying to bring everyone together and find some sort of common ground, and do that through evil fucking music.
Word. I hear you, brother. Music's the soundtrack to our lives. You're not going to steal it from us. I'm sorry. We're all friends here, aren't we?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Full Metal MAGA. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Frayle. Those guys are awesome. Go and check out their music on Bandcamp, and check out Frayle on YouTube. You got a lot of cool stuff. I'm really happy now to move on to an interview with a good friend of mine who you all know as well, InfoWars reporter Greg Reese. Hey, Greg, how you doing?
I'm good, Frank. How are you doing?
Cool. I'm good. Thanks for being on the first Full Metal MAGA.
Yeah, thank you. I'm honored.
We were talking earlier about the 1984 about Tipper Gore and the PMRC, and we were also talking about how your history with music. So I don't know what you want to go into now. If you want to talk about your history with music, or if you want to talk about how it's amazing how today the same players are trying to censor us, that we're doing it.
Well, they're somewhat related, because the incident you're talking about, the parental advisory movement thing, what's it called? The
It's the PMRC. Yeah, the PMRC, the parental music
That was 85. And so
I think it changed. Oh, there, you got the law. Yeah, right on.
yeah, that was the formation of this group of people. Tipper Gore was always the name I remembered back then. I think she was the ringleader. But that was in 85, and that was around the same time. I mean, I started playing music when I was 9 or so, but around 85 was around the time when I was actually beginning to play with other musicians and experience that aspect of it, sort of jamming and exploring writing and creating music. And so when that happened, now I wonder how everyone else felt. But I know as a musician and being in a crowd of a lot of musicians, a lot of liberals, a lot of artists, a lot of creatives, mostly, no one thought that was a cool thing or a good idea. You know, the idea of they wanted to censor it before they ended up getting that label, but they were talking about, you know, the destructive nature of words. And
yeah, you know, it's funny how it turned around on them. They got the parental advisory sticker on all those albums, and then it was like it caused musicians and artists to actually swear more, cuss more, just in order so that they would get the sticker, because then they knew that they were going to sell more records because kids wanted it. It's the total reverse psychology is if you know, having kids, I don't tell them not to do anything because they're going to do it.
yeah.
So if you want them to do something, tell them not to do it. You know, don't clean your room. That room's clean. Well, maybe that's not a good example.
That worked. Yeah.
It's funny because the same people that were the same, you know, Tipper Gore back then, there's you can look at Dee Snider and Frank Zappa when they went and testified in front of Congress. And back then, you're right, it wasn't cool. No one wanted censorship. No one wanted these stickers originally because they knew that was, if you started there, it was never going to end. Now, these very same people, Tipper Gore, Al Gore, that same machine has now, they're doing it again 35, 40 years later, and they're doing it to InfoWars. And what happened? You know, that's what we have to ask ourselves. What happened? It was not cool to censor back in the 80s, back in the 90s when America was great. Now it's totally accepted. And that's like something that I think we all need to really question ourselves, that you can't call yourself a liberal anymore and be on the left. You're a fake liberal. So
Yeah. And it's interesting. There's a lot of different layers to it too, now that we're talking about it, because I was looking back on it. I was a big fan of Frank Zappa at the time, and I was a big fan of Prince at the time. And it says here, like, one of the main song, according to Tipper Gore, the main song that inspired her to get involved was Darling Nikki, because Tipper claims that her daughter came to her about the masturbation lyrics for that song, which, and it's interesting to hear because on different levels, I was a huge Prince fan at the time, and I think a lot of Prince fans are people that are, in my assumption, I would guess that a lot of Prince fans are people that are spiritual and are sexual, very spiritual, which is, of course, a very innate quality of humans. But that song in particular, I remember in that time, it made you feel more accepted and normal. It wasn't the sort of pornographic music that things have evolved into, and perhaps as a result of the parental advisory label, like you said, it inspired people to just be lewd for the sake of being lewd, rather than trying to express themselves or express some type of truth, which is maybe exactly what they were after. Because you look at sort of upside clown world, they wanted to sort of pollute everything.
They took away Darling Nikki, the Prince. It was like the unsaid was what was provocative, you know, and it turned into with this thing Carly B, where it's just like, let's show everything and be as raunchy as we can. And it's like, you know what, that's like the furthest thing from attractive. And
yeah,
sexy there in displaying or getting across a message that was provocative and sexy, but you weren't actually saying it. So yeah, I agree. They totally have polluted it. They polluted it. Totally lost it there.
I mean, also, and the Darling Nikki, and the more I think about Darling Nikki, it was also about it raised all kinds of questions also. And there was a connection involved, you know, because he met her in the hotel lobby and you didn't know who was masturbating. You don't know if it was him or if it was her or if it was a picture in a magazine. So it's very, you know,
and also it's like if my child was to come to me with that same thing, right then is a time where you have to parent. That's when parent hat goes on. You know, you switch the parent switch. And Tipper Gore didn't parent there. She was like, what? Oh my goodness. Someone is telling my daughter about masturbation, not me. I told her that she should never do it or something like that, you know? And so it's like, instead of being a parent and what your job, the most important job of the parent is to teach your kids how to deal with the pitfalls of life. She wants it to be passed on to a sticker or a bureaucrat to do it. Just like they've now have AI doing it on YouTube and Facebook and banning people. Banning the Declaration of Independence was just shut down on Twitter the other day because the AI caught 2 words in a phrase. And it's gone from 1984. Ironically, that's when they started it, you know, and Dee Snider and Frank Zappa in Senate, to now it's actually happening. And it's very scary. It's amazing.
And it's amazing how there's the appearance as if that's the popular cool thing to do, is to silence everybody, censor everybody in the name of political correctness, in the name of some type of unspoken new age utopia, you know, Star Trek world that's just waiting for all of us, you know, dumbass rednecks to take a knee.
You know, that that's not going to happen. You know,
that's ridiculous.
You remember being kids hanging out. We hung out in Coventry, which there would be punk rock kids, heavy metal kids, hippie kids, reggae kids, old hippies, you know, teenage high schoolers, completely diverse. Everything you could think of would meet at Coventry, and we would hang out and we would have discussions and we would debate and we would argue, but in the end we would always come back and be like, hey, what's up? And we'd see you the next weekend. And that's what we need to get back to as a country, where now that they polluted art, they polluted music. Where is it? I found this. I'm a bibliophile. Where did it go? I found this book. I found this in I played in like 1990, 91 in Potsdam, or it was either Potsdam or Linz, Germany. That used to be East Germany, and it was right after the wall came down. And we played in the old communist headquarters, were abandoned. And so all these punkers were squatting in them and they were having shows. And the main book that Lenin would give out to educators and party officials, it was called Überkultur und Kunst, which means over culture and art. That's how the communists controlled countries and people, is through culture and art. I mean, it's the name of the book, you know. So it's like,
that's interesting. What was that book written?
Well, this copy is from 1960, but I don't know. I'm not sure when it was written. It's in German too. It's pretty cool.
You know, I was having a conversation with someone about brainwashing, about, you know, and this goes right along with what we're talking about, because, you know, in my I would once again assume and guess that the majority of people support freedom and support being left alone and support freedom of speech, and a very small minority doesn't. And the only reason that most of them don't is because pop culture is convincing them that everyone feels this way, and it's part of our human ego. We want to be popular, we want to be accepted, we don't want to go against the grain. And so if you can convince a person, you know, that this is what everyone thinks, don't be a loser, you know,
Yeah.
then most people will just go along with that. And so that's and that's what the art has become. The art has become a lie, a propaganda machine, sort of lying to people. In a proper world, I think you would expect art to be sort of a reflection of the majority. It would reflect. Well, I guess quite frankly, I guess it's going to always end up reflecting what society allows it to reflect. And in the case we're in now, we've gotten in a big mess where people didn't seem to care that it was corrupt. People didn't seem to care that it was mediocre. People didn't care about reality TV shows. So the more garbage we put up with, the more garbage we get. And, you know, maybe that's part of the game. Maybe that's God's will to back us up into a corner far enough until we finally say, all right.
Well, you know, it's garbage in, garbage out. And it's the systematic dumbing down of society in America, the globe, is so that you can't make informed decisions, so that you're what's the phrase? The strong rule the weak, and the smart rule the strong, and the clever rule them all. And I was watching Crowder and Rogan talk about infiltrating Antifa, and Crowder had his partner on there. I forget his name. He's a skinny guy like me.
Jared, I saw that, not Gay Jared, when he went inside the Antifa. That was good.
Yeah, it was a good one. He's a good guy. So, you know, Steve is like, you know, he'll hand out naps for sure. And this other guy's skinny. I'm skinny. Oh, the skinny people are always the leftists, are always the skinny people. There's something there. And Steven Crowder was like, oh, small people, it's because you're weak. And the guy was like, oh, yeah, I guess, you know. And I was like, yeah, that probably is why a lot of leftists they're weak in a lot of ways. But the thing is that
themselves as weak.
What's that?
Or they perceive themselves as being weak.
Yeah, and life is about acceptance, so they allow themselves to be weak. And
right.
But then there's some that are like myself, where if I'm in a situation where the last resort is a physical thing and the guy's twice my size, then I'm going to figure out another solution, where the guy who's twice my size can always rely on his physical size to back him up. So his brain, therefore, has never been engaged in the mental calisthenics in figuring out another way, figuring out another way, figuring out another way. And if you've constantly had to do that your whole life, you can do 200 push-ups of figuring out how to do another way instead of standing up for my physical stature. So it's actually the people who are weaker physically are actually the stronger ones mentally, and the clever who end up ruling everybody. And the reason I say that is because people think that it's a joke to be involved in politics. It's a joke to care about it. I don't care.
And I definitely fall into that category. I grew up I spent most of my life avoiding any type of political conversation and thinking that politics is for stupid suckers. And one of the reasons I felt that way was because in my lifetime, all I saw was corruption and lying and cheating, and all I saw was people getting fooled every 4 years to the same stupid lies, and Trump is what got me political, and it's real simple. Why? It's just because for the first time in my lifetime, there appears to be a legit challenger who's finally challenging this corruption. And I was kind of ashamed of all my friends while it was happening a few years ago, that they weren't seeing at least that, because that's what we've all complained about, left, right, middle, everyone except for the super crazies that want to just burn it all down have been complaining about the fact that we never get a choice. Whether you vote red or blue, you always get the same crap, and they're always working for the same team. That's what sort of brought us all together before, at least I think the reasonable people. And so now, for the first time, more than Ron Paul, because Ron Paul, even if Ron Paul got in, he didn't have the bull attitude that Trump has to get the job done, because this is, if what's happening, what I believe is happening, then what it is we are challenging something that has never been challenged in recorded history.
Yeah.
We're challenging something very ancient.
Yes. And it's something very dangerous right now, because
Very dangerous.
you're looking at, you said it best, you're getting the same thing left or right. And you saw it with the never Trumper Republicans, and then with every single Democrat, and then through the Mueller thing, and they're still doing it. And now what's happening, what was just announced today or yesterday, there's going to be criminal indictments of high up people, as high as it goes.
Yeah.
And this is a multi-generational plan that's happened since Alex has talked about it, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Rockefellers, 100 years, where their descendants are going to be watching this video of me and you talking about them, because they are scared, because they're not done yet. Everyone thinks that Trump was like, yeah, we won.
No. None of this means anything unless
it's the start of the fight. But
yeah.
Go well. To what you were saying about, all of our friends on the left, I consider myself being a centrist.
I always did.
The party decides all the elections is us in the middle, and I would say I lean more left. The fact that you want Bernie Sanders, who's supposedly is the most outside non-politician person to run ever, and it's amazing the mass psychosis of all my friends that are just like Orange Man bad. It's astounding to me what it has, and this is where it's our as patriots and freedom fighters, is to greet these people with a hand up instead of a slap awake. Hey, here's some coffee and let's get up, because when you wake people up, people usually don't want to wake up. I've talked about that before. So, being peacemakers, let's get back that we were hanging out in Coventry and we could have all these different views and we were okay. I mean, there were still incidents and violence. I mean, violence happened to me there, but it's not that it didn't change everything. I wasn't walking around scared. No one was scared. And that's how it should be. The whole thing with Full Metal MAGA, people are afraid of violence from the left, which astounds me. Think about that phrase, violence from the left, the hippies, the inclusive ones, right? They're not supposed to be violent. They're fake. They're fake liberals. Not only are they fake news, they're fake liberals. I'm a real liberal. They're fake. Anyway, I was sorry for getting a little bit passionate there, Greg.
No, it's a passionate conversation. I used to, months ago, I was angry, more angry than I am today about the way things are happening. And I remember thinking, these people that are still pushing for this, I don't want them to ever find forgiveness. I want them to all pay for their crimes, my perceived idea of my opinion of their crimes, or whatever. But now I am starting to think differently. I'm starting to think that it's really what it is it's people that have put their faith in the narrative, in art. And art is, they don't even have to watch the news. If they watch late night talk shows, if they watch anything in pop culture. And then the other thing is, I also think there's a side effect of freedom is that if you live in a safe, free society, then you can kind of live your whole life without ever confronting evil. And if you never confront evil, you might be convinced that you just don't understand it, and then you can be lied to and tricked, and your ego can be used against you. Like this whole, people call it virtue signaling. But if you can convince someone that they're morally superior to other people, sadly, a lot of us will just latch onto that, right? You know, we don't even know it. We just want that. There's a part of us that wants to sort of be better than everyone.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is. I have it in me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you want to get first place trophy, you know?
Yeah, right. And so it's important. It's an important part of a life, I think, that we do experience challenges and we do experience unpleasant situations, so that it forces us to examine ourselves, learn about ourselves, and realize that part of us that we're kind of sheep-like, and that if someone were so inclined, and if they had the money and the power and the TV to do it, they could kind of just make us do whatever they wanted to, you know? And I mean, we should get to a point where we teach that in schools, you know, where kids are raised learning about their psychology, learning about their ego, and learning about how if you don't control yourself, someone else is going to be controlling you. Or if you're not in control of yourself, guaranteed someone else is. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, manipulation, psychological manipulation that's been going on through humanity forever. I mean, Plato talks about the cave analogy, you know, and that's yeah, and it's going on. It's going on now.
But it's not. But we've all been through it. That's the thing. We've all been there. We've all been tricked. We've all been lied to. So
yes.
the people that are still lost in it, all they got to do is join the rest of us. You know, all they got to do is be like, "Wow, oops, I was fooled." You know.
But that's the thing, Greg. Is the hardest thing to do. The one person on the planet that's the most important not to lie to is yourself, and it's also the hardest person to be honest to is yourself, because you want to rationalize, and it's very hard for very good, well-meaning people that have lived their whole lives as social justice warriors to admit they're wrong, because that's their identity, and they're not understanding that everything that you seek about social justice, everything that you seek about equality and inclusion, as soon as you admit your mistake, you're there. There's only one last step. They all want this goal of this, I hate to say it because it's cliche, utopia, but it's like a political utopia in the libertarian conservative right, where there's every view, every nationality, every sexual orientation, every gender, and we just don't care. We care about ID. We include everyone. We're the most inclusive. Once the folks on the left, the good people, get past admitting they were wrong and just own they're wrong, then they're over here, and then they actually will be fulfilled, and they found what they've been seeking their whole lives. And that's the point where we're at, and that's the point where the vampiric spirit of the world is sucking all the energy off the trepidation of everyone. They're right at the edge of a cliff or a diving board, and they're afraid to dive in, not realizing that it's 120 degrees in Texas in August, a little bit hot maybe, but once you jump in, that's where it's at, man. You got to jump in.
Yeah. And it's actually great. It's actually, I mean, I'm fortunate because from a very, very young age, I grew up knowing in my heart that I was being lied to. So I always knew something was up. So it wasn't a heartbreak when I found out. It was actually, it was very fulfilling, and it resolved a lot. It was kind of like, oh, that's what it is. Things started making sense, and it's really, if you look at it long enough, it's not that complicated. It's the same thing everyone's been talking about for thousands of years that's going on. It's some trickery, some deception, and our minds being used against us and everything. But the beautiful thing is that when people do get to the point where they admit to themselves that they've been fooled and they realize that they were wrong about things, and they sort of bring about the destruction of their belief system, that leads to like a rebirth. That leads to a higher evolved soul. I would even argue that that's a crucial, mandatory lesson to experience as a human.
Yeah, I would have to say that if you've never gone to sleep hungry, then you don't know how good a good meal is. I mean, and that's crazy to say that, but it's like you don't know how good it is until you've never had it. Or there's a reason why people who have gone to war are the last people who are like, let's go to war, because they know what it's there. They know how bad it is. And when you've sacrificed it all for whatever reason, even if you've done it for, bad reasons, people get addicted to substances or gambling or whatever, and they lose it all. To come back up from that, it will give, if you come up honest to yourself, it's going to give you humility, and that's what we all need. There's a lack of humility. Everyone wants to be, morally on a high ground, and they think that if I admit that I'm wrong, if I'm humble, everyone's going to go, ah, ha, 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 when in reality, that's what sets you up on the high moral ground, is when you have the courage to admit you're wrong, because it's not easy to do.
I think you're right about humility, and I think humility is God, basically. When I use the word God, that includes, everyone who uses that word, their term and everything. And you can see how that's one of the reasons why certain religions, not all religions, certain religions are being demonized, because they provide that humility. Even I spent a lot of time in yoga, the yoga community, and they make an error in the teaching, but a lot of people teach the idea that you're God, or I'm God. I would say that a Hindu scholar would point out that that's not accurate. The Hindu is a complicated thing, and there are different aspects. And I would say there is a part of me that is connected to God, and everything is God. And so in some ways you could say I'm God, we're all God. And there's some truth to that. And I would even say that the relationship must be personal, and it must be self-reflective, which also appears as if it's you that's God. But the problem with the notion that you're God is you're now robbed of that humility. The most valuable quality of a relationship with God is humility. You take that out, and you ruin the whole point of it,
Yeah, there's I'm not scared to admit I'm a God-fearing man, and I want to be around other God-fearing men and women. And there's a reason, because I don't want to say it forces integrity upon people, because you're going to do the right thing when no one's around because you fear God, but it does do that. It gives you, if you lack the ability or the belief in deity, then there's nothing to answer to, basically. So you're the final authority. The buck stops with you. And so you can live your whole life treading on others, and it doesn't matter, because at the end of your life, you're not answering to anyone but yourself. But if you fear God, you understand that you're answering to God. And I fear God.
I agree with you. I probably would have never said that until the last year or 2 years of my life. I never quite understood what that meant, but I understand it completely now. If you abide by God's law, common law, basically don't tread on anyone else, you abide by those rules, then you will be rewarded, which I have found in my experience to be absolutely true. You can call it karma, you can call it whatever you want. And if you break those rules, then you will suffer. And the suffering is there to sort of convince you and teach you to be like, hey, buddy, you know, try again. But this time, you know, listen, you know.
I've been there. Yes, I know. And on that note, man, I want to kind of turn lighter, because I not only do I fear God, I also love God, and I love humanity, and I love you, brother. So I want to find out some other things about you. Like, what's your favorite color?
Favorite color is blue.
Blue. All right. What's your favorite ice cream?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. What's mine? I'm not telling. What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Christmas. Yeah. It's Full Metal MAGA. Halloween, brother. Halloween. All right, Greg. Thank you so much for giving me an interview. That was really fun talking to you. I'm sure everyone out there who sees your reports on InfoWars is going to be very interested to actually get a little backstory on you, and see what you're all about. And yeah, man, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Frank. That was fun.
All right. I'll talk to you, brother.
All right.
All right, cool.
Thanks for checking it out. Full Metal Mag is a place where libertarians, conservatives, classical liberals, apolitical people, musicians and artists can gather. We don't endorse or condemn any candidate or political party. We just want to be able to meet on a common ground and discuss things like we used to be able to do.